Hello and welcome to Kingdom of Context. I'm Sean. Thank you for joining us here tonight as we speak, hopefully with you live. If you call in, if you have any objections, questions, concerns about the ancient text, Little Genesis, often called the Apocalypse of Moses or Jubilees, then you're welcome to call in and ask your questions. Now, we've done videos in the past. I think maybe 2 years ago, we did a couple series of videos on answering objections from another ministry and what they felt was concerned about Jubilees. And we spent like, I don't know, 10 hours. We spent like 10 hours to try to address all their objections and go through the scriptures and the text of Jubilees and to show why we feel those were not valid objections. But so, at the same time, we have a lot of new viewers since then, and I just want to give people the opportunity to step in and see if you have any questions about the Book of Jubilees that concerns you. If you're not familiar, it goes by a ton of different epithets in history. The most popular would be the life of the sons of Adam and Eve, and as well as Little Genesis or the Apocalypse of Moses. The Lesser Genesis sometimes is what they call it. And by the way, it's not little. They don't call it Little Genesis because it's less in volume. It's actually the same size as far as how many chapters there are in written text. It's the same size. I would almost want to say it's even bigger in actual volume of words, but it has more little details, and that's why the ancient rabbi they referenced it as Little Genesis, has more little details to help them understand the historical narrative. And so, if you're not familiar with this, it was a historical book that was a part of the ancient Israelite literature that was. In my opinion, it was from the historical research, from what the book claims, it was actually integral in how they understood the application of the Torah during the days of the priesthood, during the days, like we're talking King David, during the days of the ancient nation of Israel. They needed it for several aspects of Torah observance to have a bearing on what things were. Not the interpretations of early second century reformations within Judaism that adopted new traditions and new interpretations of concepts, but the actual original scripturally congruent concepts. Where do new moons come from? Where in Jeremiah 17, what is the burden being referenced in regards to the Sabbath? What is the idea of why are new moons so significant even when the kingdom comes and all nations are going to be observing them, in addition to the Sabbaths, obviously, but just unique things that are in there. Like, what is the Feast of Addition? Why is there unexplained in the book of Leviticus, Exodus, and Numbers this additional 8th day at Tabernacles? And I thought it was just a 7-day festival. Where this 8th day Sabbath come from? What's that all about? It's not explained in Genesis through Deuteronomy. It's only explained in Jubilees. So there's a lot of different aspects to this book and why it was so important, why it was literally. They didn't cite, hey, I'm speaking from Little Genesis, or hey, I'm speaking from the Apocalypse of Moses. They just spoke information that you can only find in that book. Like in the scriptures, we'll go to some now, while we give people a chance to call in. And the call-in link is in the video description. It's also pinned in the live chat. So if you do want to call in, have a question about this, you're welcome to. If you've heard someone try to demonize it, they don't know the history of canon formation or the history of this book itself. All right, so let's go to, ironically, we can start right straight with the book of Galatians. Isn't that amazing? Here in Galatians 3, where Paul's talking about when the law was given, it was added because of transgressions to the arrival of the seed to whom promise referred. It was administered through angels by a mediator. Now, what's interesting is if you actually go into this text and look at the Greek, for this concept of it was administered. What does it mean by it was administered by angels? I thought God gave us the law at Mount Sinai. And for all those who believe in, pre-incarnate Christology, I thought, if I'm speaking in their argumentation, they would say, well, Christ gave you the law at Mount Sinai. Why is it saying angels administered the law? What is this? Because you don't read that in Genesis or Exodus. Excuse me, or just Exodus. You don't read that, or the retelling in Deuteronomy. You don't read that. So what is this? It's dieteges. I don't think I said that right. Let's see if I can get this here. Diatasos. All right. To appoint, to command, to give, to set in order, to ordain. Gave orders to arrange, arranged, directed, giving instructions from, to arrange thoroughly, to institute, prescribe, appoint, command, order, or institute. Now, what I think is fascinating about this is that, again, you thought, wait a minute, I thought it was God's voice from heaven. Is this a contradiction in the Bible? I thought the book of Exodus tells us that they're at the base of the mountain and God spoke and he was like, oh, it's too much. And the people freaked out. And they're like, his voice is too much. Tell him to stop and just speak to Moses and we'll listen to Moses. And then Moses went up in the mounts and spoke with God for 40 days and 40 nights and came back down with the tablets with the commandments on them. I thought, but Jubilees is, or Romans, excuse me, not Romans, but Galatians chapter 3. Galatians chapter 3, 19, Paul's trying to tell us that, oh, wait, actually it was given, instructed, prescribed, ordained, arranged by angels. It was administered by angels. Interesting. Is this the only place that we can see? Now, this arranged concept is interesting because this is going to matter once we go into Jubilees. But what if I went to the book of Acts where Stephen talks about the concept at Mount Sinai as well? Verse 35, this Moses, whom they rejected with the words, who made you ruler and judge, is the same one whom God sent to be their ruler and redeemer through the angel who appeared to them in the bush. Okay, cool. Angels appeared to him in the bush. We know that. It wasn't a pre-incarnate Christ. It was an angel. But you go on to say, you stiff-necked people with uncircumcised hearts and ears, you always resist the Holy Spirit just as your fathers did. Which of the prophets did your fathers fail to persecute? They even killed those who foretold the coming of the righteous one. That's Christ. And now you're his betrayers and murderers. You who received the law ordained by angels, yet have not kept it. Ordained by angels. There's that same word again. Let's look in the Greek, huh? Ordained by angels. 753. See if it'll let me go down to 50. It's not going to let me go down to 7. Here we go. Diegesis, 1296. Same word. Slightly different. Same root word, slightly different suffix, it looks like. Arrangement, institution. Ordained, ordinance. So, is this interesting? For all of you there that are questioning, wait a minute, what's going on here? How are you? I thought God spoke on Mount Sinai. He did, but then when he brought him up there, there's angels up on the top of the mountain who, 2 witnesses, we're going to go to a third, 2 witnesses, Stephen and Paul, when the law was given on Mount Sinai, ordained by angels. The same one, by the way, it's also the Holy Spirit who gave it, but yet it was administered, spoken, and prescribed, instructed, arranged, ordained by the angels. They're talking with Moses. All right, there's 3 witnesses in the New Testament to this idea. Okay. We must pay closer attention, therefore, to what we have heard so that we do not drift away. For if the message spoken by angels was binding and every transgression and disobedience received its just punishment, how should we escape if we neglect such a great salvation? So again, in a reference to the concept of the law being given, every message spoken by angels is binding. Angels are ordaining the law, prescribing, instructing, instituting, teaching it, arranging it, ordaining it. They're on Mount Sinai speaking to Moses. Looks like fun stuff, right? But now we go to Jubilees. And we're going to see does Jubilees talk about this? Because you don't find this in the Old Testament. You only find this description of what happened on Mount Sinai in the New Testament. Just giving you a brief taste of what's going on here. Why it's important that we understand the historicity of this book, its importance to those in the first century, why is Stephen and Paul appealing to it, why is the writer of Hebrews affirming that these words are ordained by the angel. This is Jubilees chapter 1, okay? Book of Jubilees, chapter 1. You can find this for free online in a multitude of places. And the angel of the presence who went before the camp of Israel took the tablets of the divisions of the years. So first of all, this is the angel of the presence, same one that appeared to him in the bush, as Acts 7:35 says. Okay? Same angel. He talks about how he's the same angel. I don't have time to go to it, but he talks about it in the book of Jubilees as he's providing this entire discourse to Moses. That's why this is called the Apocalypse of Moses, is one of its names. He talks about how he is the one who appeared to him in the bush. And this is an angel the whole time. He's not pretending to be the Son of Man. He's not pretending to be, the Son of God in pre-incarnate form. No, it's an angel of God. He talks about his fellow angels that also came and gave messages to Jacob and former patriarchs in times past. It's an angel. This is another huge reason why certain camps of Christianity would reject this book, because it destroys the Trinitarian pre-Christology narrative. This angel of the presence who went before the camp of Israel took the tablets of the divisions of the years. Oh, I'm sorry. By the way, in chapter 2, it even explains this category of angel. And it's not the Son of God who goes with the head of days in Daniel's vision or in Enoch's vision in chapter 46 and 48. It's literally just a classification of the different types of angels that were made on day one. It's not the Son of God. It's just an angel called an angel of the presence. They're particularly the archangels, if you will, the higher categorical authority levels of angels. And the angel who went before the camp of the divisions of the years from the time of the creation of the law and the testimony of the weeks of the Jubilees, according to the individual years. So the tables of the divisions of the years. The divisions of the years. This is important because you understanding the divisions of the years is how it's systematically taught. This is why it's in 50 chapters. He's systematically teaching in accordance from the time of creation, starting in chapter 2, unto the law and the testimony of the weeks of the Jubilees, according to the individual. So this goes all the way up to the days of Moses. From creation to Moses is this dividing up the years in segments of Jubilees, according to individual years, according to all the number of the Jubilees, according to the individual years, from the day of the new creation, when the heavens and the earth shall be renewed, and all their creation according to the powers of the heaven, according to all the creation of the earth, until the sanctuary of the Lord shall be made in Jerusalem on Mount Zion. This is Ezekiel 37. This is kingdom come language, second coming, 2 Peter 3:10. And the luminaries be renewed for healing. This is Revelation 21. This is the concept of why would you need to renew the luminaries? Oh, some of them are falling from the sky in Revelation 6, the sixth seal. The sixth trumpet. And for peace and blessing for all the elect of Israel, and that it must be that from that day unto all the days of the earth. Okay, so this is important. This is the instruction of Moses. Write down for yourself all these words which I declare unto you on this mountain, the first and the last, which shall come to pass in all the divisions of the days, in the law and in the testimony, and in the weeks and jubilees into eternity, until I descend and dwell with him throughout eternity. And he said to the angel of the presence, write for Moses from the beginning of creation to my sanctuaries will be built among them for all eternity. So both the angel and Moses are writing this down. And so this is important, that this is why the angel is then going to dictate, as a mouthpiece of the Lord, all the division of days. This is the arranging. This is the concept of arranging. He's going to dictate systematically according to divisions of time periods. He's going to arrange the story according to the law and the testimony in relationship all the way back to Adam, and how everyone already knew the law and how they kept the law, how they were aware of the law. Some laws weren't given yet. Majority were. This is why, there's a whole explanation here. It's a whole incredible explanation here as far as understanding some of the things in the Bible that we're familiar with. It's the arrangement of the law and the testimony, ordained by angels, administrated, arranged, prescribed basically they're holding Moses' hand, walking him through this information and helping him write it down. You don't get this type of bold declaration from Genesis to Deuteronomy. It's just historically accepted that Genesis to Deuteronomy was written by Moses, but that's always up for debate because they're like, well, was it technically written by him or was it written by the scribes under his command? Because that's a part of one of the duties of the Levites. I personally lean towards the scribal theory because Moses, wasn't alive to write the end of Deuteronomy. And the point is, even if he was, and there's a ton of anachronistic names of places in the book of Genesis that is added in later at later times from later scribes that would not have matched the days of Moses. But regardless of that, it's still attributed to Moses because he was top dog at that point, right? So that's fine. He gets attributed to him, and under his authority, those are written and transcribed. That's fine. Doesn't change the truthfulness of what it says. So basically, I just want to encourage you that yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you, Born Wilder. Appreciate that. Yeah, guys, go to our Kick link below in the video description. Just open another tab, hit mute, give us a view over there, give us a follow over there. That way it helps us grow on Kick and get more exposure. That's a growing platform with no censorship. Help us get over there and get more exposure. If you like watching us on YouTube, that's fine. Just open a secondary tab with our KSC Kick channel, press mute, let it play, give us some engagement, drop a hello in the live chat. That way it's going to help us grow over there as well. Okay. Because they actually track like how many people are attending your live streams. And so that way it helps you grow. So I just want to give you guys just a little bit of a taste, if you will, from Galatians 3, Hebrews 2, Acts 7 to show you, ooh, Jubilees seems kind of important. Seems kind of important. In fact, let's do this even. So we just went to some scriptures. Now what if I took you to the 4th century? Okay. 4th century guy named Epiphanius of Salamis. I believe he was in Cyprus. So he's a prominent bishop, place called Cyprus. Epiphanius is best known for his massive work, Panarion, also called Panarion Heresies, or the Medicine Chest Against Heresies, written around 374 to 377 AD. In this text, particularly in chapter 39, refuting the Sethians, he appeals to Jubilees as true history. So if you look here, this is his quote. He says, he's refuting this group, the Sethian Gnostics, okay, who had a bunch of myths about creation that was contrary to biblical history. And he's about to refute them. He's going to refute Gnostics by quoting Jubilee specifically in regards to biblical history and going way back to Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. He says, but we find in the Jubilees, which is also called the Little Genesis, the book even contains the names of both Cain's and Seth's wives, so that in every way those who have recited their myths to the world may be put to shame. For when Adam had begotten sons and daughters, it became necessary at that time for the children to be joined to their own sisters, for such a thing was not unlawful, since there was no other race. Indeed, Adam himself, so to speak, was joined to his own daughter, she who was formed almost from his own body and bones, fashioned for him by God as a consort. And it was not unlawful. And his sons were joined in marriage, Cain to his elder sister, who is called Awan, or Sawa, and then Seth, the third son born after Abel, to his sister called Azura. And Adam had other sons as well, as the Little Genesis relates. Nine besides these three, so that he had 2 daughters and the rest male. Fascinating, guys. This is fascinating that here we have 4th century guy. Now, again, do I believe and agree with everything that this guy teaches? No. But the point of what he's doing is he's appealing. This would be like him quoting Genesis or quoting Exodus or quoting the Psalms. He's not adding interpretation. He's citing information that's only found in Jubilees to say the Gnostics with their own creation myths is false. Here's true history. And by the way, here's true history to how the first race of mankind propagated. And he's not even appealing to Genesis. He's appealing directly to Jubilees and giving multiple names for it, which is historically accurate. And this is after the Council of Carthage, to my memory. Okay, no. Yeah, that's right. It's Council of Carthage would be, let me see here, the first one at least. 397. Yeah, I was thinking 386. So 397. So this is a couple years before. So 20 years before, a quote unquote Council of Carthage, where they got together and decided which books we want in or out, right? Well, they left out this people associated with this guy, I should say, with the Orthodox within this guy. They left out Enoch and Jubilees. But here he is. The Council of, like, go back to his date, right? 310 to 43 AD. So the Council of Carthage was done 6 years before he died. And in his penultimate work, if you guys don't understand, like, he is known for this book. This is, you remember, like, you guys have heard me on this channel oftentimes talk about Against Heresies from Irenaeus. That's his penultimate work. This was Epiphanius' penultimate work, Panarion, the medicine chest against heresies. Like, this is the best thing he's known for. Orthodox and Catholics still lean on this today, but they just conveniently ignore he's literally refuting heresy from Jubilees, because 20 years later, after this, Jubilees wasn't decided upon as going to be part of the canon in the Council of Carthage. So this is just within this particular group of orthodoxy. Jubilees is already in the Ethiopian list of books that they leaned upon and learned from. Jubilees at this time is buried amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls. Jubilees is being passed around by other Christians, not just by this guy. So again, this, it kind of goes back to how do we truly understand the canonization process of why they chose certain books. It wasn't always based on whether they believed the theology was wrong. He didn't believe Jubilees was wrong. He's literally, in his penultimate work Against Heresies, he is using it as a source text. So I think it's fascinating. I think it's a fascinating point of history that we need to be mindful of. All right, guys, if you haven't been here in a while, we talk about this emphatically. We can't control YouTube. They put commercials on my videos after they demonetize them, while they demonetize them, while they limit their reach, while they don't notify people of my videos being going out. They still overload them with commercials. If you don't like the commercials, that's why we're literally multi-streaming on Rumble and Kick simultaneously. The links are in the video description. So if you don't want to use YouTube and endure their abuse of content creators with commercials, if you're not paying for YouTube Premium, we have 2 other free options for you to go watch us on that are commercial free. So, or at least I think Rumble is commercial free. But yeah. All right. If you have a question about Jubilees, make sure that I know you're talking to me in the live chat. So go ahead and put capitalize a question mark or a question Q, something. Give me some indication with capitals that you're actually speaking to me. You have a question regarding Jubilees. Otherwise, I don't know if you're just talking to someone in the live chat. All right. We get this one all the time, so I'm just going to go ahead and guess this is for me. James is asking, why does Jubilees add to the law, like sex on Sabbath, fasting, and why does it say not to eat with Gentiles? All right, so we've addressed these infinitum, so I'll try to be brief in how I've done this. Brother James, in your own Torah, and what most people who call the law the Torah, using Judaism's parameters, Genesis through Deuteronomy, if you were to literally apply that to your life, okay? If you were in ancient Israel, you were trying to go to a temple on the holy convocation days, you could not be unclean from sex anyway. You would have to with your wife, you would have to have sex in a way so where you're not unclean on the day that's a holy convocation, because you're required to go to the gates of the temple to present yourself to the priest. So that's what the Sabbaths are called. When they actually had a temple, priesthood, congregation, people came to it on Sabbaths of holy convocations. You couldn't be unclean anyway. Study Leviticus 13 through 15, brother. You couldn't be unclean anyway. Okay? So Jubilees is not adding to the law. It's literally just explicitly stating what you would have to infer through deep study from Leviticus. Same thing with fasting. Okay? Who fasted past a Sabbath at some point because they fasted for a long period of time? What does it say? From all the texts that I've read and can understand that I feel are valid, scriptural, historically congruent, you have who fasted more than 7 days in history. Abraham, Moses, clearly, Ezra, Christ, obviously. I think there's one more, and I just think, Elijah. So none of those men are reprimanded because why? Because they're told to fast to draw near to God. So, for example, fasting, just like when Christ is talking about breaking the Sabbath because David ate the showbread, right? That showbread was intended for something for the priest, but he's not held guilty because it was given to save a life, right? The higher command within the Torah allows for, just like Christ says in Matthew 12, the priest minister on the Sabbath in the temple and you're held guiltless. Because why? Because they're instructed by God to draw near to God for ministry's sake, even though it's still a Sabbath, because that's part of their direct instruction. And it's not working for lascivious gain or for profit or whatever. The point is, it's for dedication to Yahweh. So in the same way the prophets are called many oftentimes to fast for lengthy periods of time, which may overlap a Sabbath, because it's a direct command from God, and therefore they're held guiltless. But in the general sense of what Jubilees 2 and chapter 50 are also talking about, it's referencing the idea that if you're having a holy convocation, which Leviticus 23, 1 through 3 calls Sabbaths and calls feast days, then you are supposed to eat on those days enjoyment, all right, as a feast to Yahweh. So that's why the general command is do not fast on the Sabbath, because you're already drawing close to Yahweh and you're doing so prescribed as a feast. You're supposed to eat. So the idea of the Sabbath is that, or excuse me, of a fast is that somebody would be drawing close to God in a different way that would contradict that, unless there's a divine command for them to specifically get alone with God for a purpose of ministry. And that was typically what was going on in the events of Elijah, Moses, Ezra, Jesus. They all went out to fast for lengthy periods of time because they were about to do something ministry related that the Holy Spirit was going to flow through them in a special way above and beyond the normal activities. So that's why if Yahweh tells you to do something, you can supersede it. This is why Jubilees is just giving you the general basic command, which would be congruent with Leviticus 23. Dude, you don't fast on the days that are called feast days. It's that simple. Oh, but is God asking you to do something above and beyond that? Okay, then follow God's direction, because he's not going to hold you guilty of breaking a law. That's the general command, because he's giving you a higher explicit command. All right. And in the context of Jubilees, if we'll go there, give me 1 second, I'll go there. You're asking about why does it say not to eat with Gentiles? There's context to this. We have to always keep that in mind. I'm trying to remember if it was chapter 18. I'll pull this up real quick. Okay. Why isn't this going? Why isn't it going? One sec, guys. All right, so let's go here. All right. So this is the passage that most people bring up and they say, oh, it says, do not eat with Gentiles. And do you, Jacob, remember my words, observe the commandments, my father, separate yourself from the nations. Sometimes it'll, depends on your Jubilees translation, that'll say Gentiles, and eat not with them. Do not according to their works and become not their associate, for their works are unclean. All their ways are pollution and abomination and uncleanness. Why? Why are they unclean? Why is it abomination, pollution, uncleanness? Because they offer sacrifices to the dead and they worship evil spirits. They eat over the graves. All their works are vanity and nothingness. This is why he's not just saying you can't have a meal with them. He's talking specifically about how they offer sacrifices to idols and how they eat. That's the context of it. And this is why it's important for us to read for context. We're just not just listening to a little video that somebody puts out that says, oh, look at this, just one little quote mine. There's one little passage from Jubilees says, don't eat with Gentiles. Well, that's against the Torah. Yeah, it would be if it was not talking about actual idolatry. That's kind of the important part there. So yeah, don't eat in the context of idolatry. Don't eat with Gentiles. No, don't do that. All right. Derek, I'm just going to guess this is an actual question that you're asking about Jubilee 7, verse 8, because we get this all the time. Okay. Jubilee 7, verse 8. Ham saw Noah's father naked, went forth and told his two brethren. This is the month we also see in Genesis 9. Shem took his garment, arose. He and Japheth, they placed the garment on their shoulders, went backward, covered the shame of their father, and their faces were backward. Noah woke from his sleep and knew all that his younger son had done to him, and he cursed his son and said, cursed be Canaan, and an enslaved servant shall he be unto his brethren. He blessed Shem, he enlarged Japheth, and Ham knew his father had cursed his younger son, and he was displeased that he had cursed his son. And he parted from his father, he and his sons with him, Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. Look, brother, Canaan is already born. Canaan's already born. He's approximately 2 years old from the math When I go down here and I try to do the math on the following chapters, as far as where Canaan as the last born son of Ham, it's not, he's cursing Canaan, not because Canaan did something to him, not because Ham had sex with his mother-in-law and birthed Canaan as a result. But Canaan's already born. Canaan is not the son birthed from his mother, because that's not the inference of him seeing what his son had done to him. His son had mocked him. His son had mocked him after seeing him naked. This is a direct violation of the, honor your father and mother. This is not about incest. This is not about Canaan being birthed from an unrighteous union between Ham and Noah's wife, or Ham's mother. That's not what this is about. That's why Canaan is already born. He's like 2 years old when this happens. And why? In my opinion, because he's proven himself to be a negligent father, not teaching righteousness. And this son would be the one that would receive the brunt of that. He's the one that's going to receive the cursing of unrighteous parenting, because Ham had adopted a bad attitude, had adopted an unrighteous character. So no, this isn't, regardless of what the Jews say, this is not about their interpretation. This is literally, if you read this text and look it up, it's Canaan's already alive. He's not birthed as a result. There's no incest in this passage. It's not about that. But that's understandable question. We get it often. Genesis doesn't give you a lot of details. All right, Noah Peterson, he's asking, was Jacob shown the kingdom in Jubilees? You have to go down to chapter 32. And this is where he has he sees in the following night, 22nd day of the month, Jacob resolved to build that place. All right, so he has a dream, a vision. Let me see here. By the way, we're getting a ton of Torah right here, in case anyone recognizes what they're looking at. On the following night, the 22nd day of the month, he resolved to build a place to surround the court with a wall, to sanctify it and make holy forever himself to his children forever. The Lord appeared to him by night and blessed him and said to him, your name shall not be called Jacob, but Israel. That shall be your name. And he said unto them again, I am the Lord who created the heaven and the earth, and I will increase you and multiply you exceedingly, and kings shall come forth from you, and they shall judge everywhere, wherever the foot of the sons of men have trodden. And I will give to you all the seed of the earth which is under heaven, and they shall judge all the nations according to their desires, and all that they get possession of the whole earth and inherit it forever. He had finished speaking with him, and he went up from him, and Jacob looked till he had ascended into heaven. And he saw in a vision of night, behold, an angel descended from heaven with 7 tablets in his hand, and gave them to Jacob. And he read them and knew all that was written therein, which would befall him and his sons throughout all the ages. And he showed him all that was written on the tables, and said unto him, do not build this place, do not make it an eternal sanctuary, and do not dwell here, for this is not the place. Go to the house of Abraham your father, and dwell with Isaac your father till the day of the death of your father. For in Egypt you shall die in peace, and this land shall be buried with honor in the sepulchre of your fathers, Abraham and Isaac. Fear not, for as though have you seen and read it, thus shall it be. And do you write down everything you've seen and read? And Jacob said, Lord, how can I remember all the things I've read and seen? And he said to him, I'll bring all things to your remembrance. Oh, it's like the Holy Spirit's working on him already. And he went up from him, and he woke from his sleep, and he remembered everything which he had read and seen, and wrote down all the words which he had read and seen. He celebrated yet there another day, and sacrificed thereon according to all that he had sacrificed in the former days, and called his name Addition. For this day was added in the former day of the feast. So literally the day that he gets his new name is the day that he is explained and sanctifying the 8th day of Tabernacles, the 22nd of the 7th month, as we read. It's the day he has a vision of heaven and sees what's going to befall his sons throughout the ages. And he's fascinated with this sanctuary that he had seen in a vision and wants to build it. But he's saying, no, you're not to build this eternal sanctuary. Because why? The eternal sanctuary is the one that we read from chapter 1 that is going to be till the new creation, the renewed of all the creation according to the powers of heaven, according to the creation of the earth, until the sanctuary of the Lord shall be made in Jerusalem on Mount Zion. This, of course, is the place that Christ goes to prepare for us. So yes, Jacob was shown the gospel of the kingdom, the future kingdom to come, just like Moses was shown on the mountain, the pattern on which he was to make after the sanctuary in heaven, as well as the paradise in heaven. So yes, he was shown all this amazing stuff. We do not have any record of the writings of Jacob in regards to that. So that's unfortunate. All right. Rochelle's asking, Shalom. Hey, Sister Shalom. She's asking, is Adam is the first priest in order of Melchizedek, or Adam is just priest unto Yahweh? Because right after they were kicked out in Jubilees, Adam off to burn offerings. Yes, in Jubilees, I think 3:24 and 25, or 3 verse 24 through 27. Yeah, he's so the word Melchizedek is a word for a righteous ruler. Okay, that's what Zedek means, righteousness. Melchi means ruler. So it's basically just saying you have a ruler of righteousness or a king of righteousness. Obviously, a king is a ruler. Priests were also kings, they were rulers. That's why the Melchizedek in Genesis 14 is the high priest to God Most High. And he's a ruler of the land. That's why Abraham, who was also a prophet, by the way, is submitting his tithe to that priest in honor of that priest, that Melchizedek, to God. Okay, he's tithing to God through the priesthood, just like you see in the Torah, right? So yes, Adam would be the first Melchizedek because he's the first righteous ruler as the head patriarch of all mankind, literally the oldest and head patriarch of his family. So this is the idea. It would be a Melchizedek. Shalom, Shara. It happens all the time, brother. That's why we do these shows, try to help sort out, the constant misrepresentation from constant ministries out there that they don't care to actually read the books that they're demonizing and misrepresenting. They just, Google can be a wonderful these search engines, these AI engines, they can be a wonderful resource for you, or they can just, embolden your laziness to look for something that doesn't, that's just, oh, what are 10 things wrong with Jubilees? And it's just going to access some article on the internet that some guy wrote. You don't know if it's true or not. You need to go fact check. You need to go study for yourself. Look for the context of these claims. Yes, G.R. Cleve. Yes, Noah's curse on Canaan manifested, if you want to say, if became true, like worked itself out as his life, because it tells you later on Jubilees, he is cursed because he had an unrighteous heart and broke the covenant of the fathers and forefathers as far as the land distribution. That's why he went and stole some of Shem's land. And then later in the scriptures, that's why it's called the land of Canaan and not the land of Shem. That was his curse, because it was breaking that covenant had a death penalty, and he was not repentant about it. So he was, and clearly he emboldened all the people and his descendants and other people to entrench that land to try to keep the descendants of Shem out. This is hence the conflict with Moses and Joshua going in there to root out the land of Canaan, to root out the evil from the land of Canaan. S of an Bear, I couldn't even say if it'd be any different, to be honest, if we had Jubilees instead of Genesis this whole time, because you might have a few less speculative theories floating around, but at the same time, I feel like Genesis is fine. Like we can still get sound doctrine from Genesis if we just believe what it says too. But that's the problem historically with all types of Christian sects, is like they just don't believe it. They just They read it and they say, yeah, no. And they just don't believe it. They just make up something else. It's just a problem with mankind. This is why we should pray that Father should increase our faith. All right, I don't see a lot of questions here coming in. It's a great opportunity for you guys who are people in the background that are watching that know historically that we've said Jubilees is legit. You don't think so because you believe the critique from other ministries. This is a great opportunity for you to bring forward your questions. All right, Falcor is asking, does Jubilees contain the primary passage that leads us to believe Yeshua was pre-incarnate? I don't really understand why our Unitarian brothers believe this. I don't think that Jubilees, it's not used one way or another for pre-incarnate. It's not like Enoch. Jubilees doesn't even really touch on, it just references the seed to come, like you see in Galatians 3. It just references the seed to come being from Jacob, but it doesn't speak one way or the other on the pre-incarnate nature of Christ. Maybe I'm not understanding your question. Yeah, it doesn't speak on it one way or another. It just definitely doesn't support the Trinitarian Christology of Christ showing up everywhere in the Old Testament as the angel of the Lord. It refutes that 100%. Okay. I'm not saying it's a pro-Unitarian book, but I'm saying it's definitely anti-Jesus is the angel of the Lord book. It refutes that 100%. So in that regard, I could understand why, they don't want to accept it in the biblical canons back in the 4th century. I could get that because it was full of Trinitarians at that point. So, by 397, you had the Nicene Bros had taken back over from the Semi-Arians, and so they were adamant, and they'd already developed their, angel of the Lord Christology by that point too. So I could totally understand why they would want to reject Jubilees, but strangely enough, the Ethiopians kept it. And it's, here's a Trinitarian, Epiphanius, quoting from it to refute heretics, which is pretty ironic. Yeah, MSCON, the main points, there's a ton of different points of contention with this book, not because of what it says, but from people just throwing accusations at it, lobbying unstudied, unresearched claims against it because they've been told that they're supposed to hate it. So, if you ever engage, this is probably why no one's calling in, because the moment you start asking some legitimate questions about their comprehension of the book, they haven't read it, they haven't studied it, and all these accusations against it are unfounded and easily refuted from the text. They just, it's just one of those deals where they just, some preacher, some minister that they like said Jubilees is bad, Jubilees contradicts the Bible, and threw out some out of context wording from a couple passages, and then la-di-da, there you go. People think it's bad. So we're just trying to clear up the confusion. Well, if you ever get into it, it'll bless you because it'll help you understand your Old and New Testament better. absolutely help you understand so much, and the history, and your atheist apologetics. You know, the big one the atheists always bring up is the conquest of Canaan, like we were just talking about a few minutes ago. Why is the land called Canaan? You look in Jubilees 8 and 9, that land was given to Shem. It was supposed to be Shem's. This is why Abraham is brought into that land from Chaldea, a descendant of Shem, and told, you will inherit this land, right? God just didn't arbitrarily just decide, oh, Abraham, I'm going to take you to somebody else's land and promise it to you. And, you know, too bad for those guys who've been living here and given it to their descendants for hundreds of years. Too bad to them. I'm just going to ignore them and give it to you because you're Abraham. Like, he called Abraham out of Chaldea. Why not just raise up somebody already living in the land of Canaan, right? Because he's calling someone from the lineage of Shem from Genesis 10 to understand that concept of why it matters for Abraham to be chosen, to be brought into that land specifically and be promised that land forever, and him as his descendants, in spite of the people living there, is only explained to you in Jubilees. And it directly tells you that Canaan took it by sedition. And so there's a death penalty associated with that. This is why Yahweh is killing the inhabitants of that land who are not leaving on their own free will, that wanted to stay in there and defend that land. That's why there's a death penalty involved, that he's using the children of Israel coming out of the Exodus as a military force to exact that divine justice on those people that are there. It wasn't supposed to be their land to begin with. So it's really, really helpful, because basically it helps you with the back history of saying, wait a minute, the atheists, of course, get crazy. Like, they ignore all the sins of the Amorites and the 10 nations mentioned in Genesis 15. They ignore all those sins, right, of those people, and just say, oh, it's unfair for God to take these Israelites out of Egypt and try to take them into somebody else's land in the conquest of Canaan. No, it's not. The Canaan was already conquested hundreds of years earlier, and it wasn't their land to begin with. This is just Yahweh dealing with the murderers as they should be dealt with according to the law, dealing with the people who are there stealing land and killing people who try to take back their land. So this is actually divine justice, and there's a back history to it. It's not just arbitrary. It's not just God choosing Abraham for no reason. There's a huge reason involved. It's a previous covenant, a willful covenant that Canaan made with his father Ham, with Noah there, and in my opinion, even with the angel present as the holy judge, but with Noah there at the minimum as the overseeing patriarch of the family, as the Melchizedek. And Jubilees 8 and 9 tells you about this covenant they made. And then Canaan intentionally broke it. All right. Geoclave, no. The Genesis Apocryphon is something else that's often found in fragments within the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the Moses Apocryphon, I don't remember that being, it's the Apocalypse of Moses, not the Moses Apocryphon, to my memory. Bar Joseph Sale is asking, question for the us, is it simply Yahweh with angels in Genesis 1:26, equivalent to Jubilees 3:4? So let's go here real quick. Oops. And the Lord said unto us, it's not good that man should be alone. Let us make a helpmeet for him. So I personally think that this is not referring to an us in some sort of generic colloquial sense of like, hey, we're all in the room, let us do this. He's not asking permission either. I personally think that the Son is a part of this because of Enoch, because remember, this book, Jubilees, validates the writings of Enoch that we have today. Okay, it literally tells you that that Enoch was some of the books that Noah had passed down. Abraham had them in chapter 21. He's learning how to do priestly sacrifices with them. And then even, I think it's chapter 44, Levi at the base of Mount Sinai has them. Okay, so this book validates what Enoch has already said. And so, and of course, the writings of First Enoch, um, we're shown in chapter 46 through 48 that the Son of Man, who's a separate being from the Ancient of Days, who is the one that's promised to be the staff of righteousness to the Gentiles, in whom they'll rest, and whom they'll hope. It is, the pre-incarnate Christ who's already in heaven, being given his authority in front before the sun, moon, and stars were created. He's the one that's being named with the authority of the Father in heaven, the one that Enoch sees going with the Ancient Days and being hidden in his bosom until he's revealed to the elect. So this is same language as John 1:18, right? The Son whom was hidden in the bosom of the Father. It's the same language there as well. So I do believe Genesis 1:26 and Jubilees 3:4 is in a reference to the Son being a part of this us. Now, does the us include all of them? People can make a case either way. It doesn't signify. Does it include the Father, Son, and the angels? People could make a case either way. I personally think, though, the us is speaking more about the Son, because although I don't believe the Son physically created, in some facet, things are being made through him, for him, as we see later in 1 Corinthians 8:6 and John chapter 1 verse 3. And so I think that there's some facet to him being there to witness the actual creation as first order next to his Father, so that he can also have the same knowledge the angels have. He has the same level of accountability the angels have. To whom much is given, much is expected. This is why it's such a big deal that he also then can become incarnate as man, do his mission on earth, then be resurrected to be high priest. So now he's literally can be king and high priest over heaven and earth under his Father's authority, which was the whole plan the whole time. So I do think that he's a part of the us. That's in Genesis 1:26. He's just, the scripture says the Father alone is the creator. So I do believe that. So Falcor, this is a Jewish legend. Okay. It's not stated in Jubilees, but it doesn't matter. So even if you did the genealogical timelines, they don't quite add up to Shem. Depends on if you're going through the Septuagint or the Masoretic. But the Melchizedek in Genesis 14 would just be a succession of priests. This is the point of why there's an order. So here's what I mean by that. Okay. That same, even though it's fragmented, that same story is in Jubilees 13. All right. So I'll show you real quick. All right. This is right after, remember, in Genesis 14, Abraham rescues Lot from Kedorlaomer and then goes and gives a tenth of the spoils. He tithes a tenth of that to the Melchizedek in Genesis 14. And so this is where it picks up, right? He escaped and told Abraham's brothers and sons, taking Abraham and armed his soul's household servants. So the actual, he went to go get Lot. That's the concept right here. And then verse 25, for Abraham and his seed, a tenth of the first fruits to the Lord. And the Lord ordained it as an ordinance forever, that they should give it to the priests who served before him, that they should possess it forever. Plural, priests who served before him. So this is where the Melchizedek is a high priest to the Most High God. That means there's priests under him. Jubilees explains to you that the ordinance for the tithe is not just for one person, because it's a part of their substance. If you understand God's law, you go read Deuteronomy 18, other passages, Deuteronomy 21, Numbers 21, and you read the idea of the concept of the first fruit is for the priesthood, which was for a lot of people. That's why it's a tenth, right? You're not just buying a meal for one guy. There's an order, just like in the Levitical order. You hear that term order? An order is a group. Okay, so there's hierarchy within the group. There's a high priest, and then there's lesser priests that he's training in his stead, right? And he's managing the sanctuary of God. He's managing the household of God. All right. So there was an actual building in the ancient that the Melchizedek worshipped in. He just doesn't meet him in an open field, right? All that has to be assumed, right? But if you take the Torah as the standard, which God says is eternal, and that Abraham obeyed all the commandments, statutes, and ordinances of Yahweh in Genesis 26:5. Well, previously, when in Genesis 14, Abraham is obeying the ordinance of the tithe, which he just calls forever here in Jubilees 13. It's a forever ordinance. And then he goes to take that by law, by God's law, he has to take that to the priests who minister to Yahweh on their behalf. And so even though I believe Abraham is a priest because it literally tells you so, and I would infer personally that this moment where he's filling the hands of Abraham with the bread and wine, I believe this is literally him ordaining Abraham into the priesthood because he was already a prophet. But that's a different story, okay? Because you didn't have to be of a specific family lineage like the Levites. You could just be a righteous person and be made a Melchizedek priest, okay? But the point is, he's still abiding by the law of the tithe. The law of the tithe goes to plural priests. And it says Abraham gave it to the Melchizedek's priests to eat and drink with joy before him. And the king of Sodom came to him and bowed himself before him. And then we know this story is also in Genesis as well. He refuses anything from the king of Sodom. So it's interesting that this gives you some clear explanation to that there is a priesthood, right? So there's a most high priest to God most high, right? There's a high priest who's over lesser priests in a priesthood. That's why plural, the tithe goes to a group of men called priests to help them eat and drink. Hopefully it's a good, decent explanation for you. Breakdown. So Rick Johnson, in Hebrews 7, the concept of Melchizedek being without beginning or end is speaking about the requirement for the Levitical priesthood, right? To have a mother or father who was a Levitical descent. There is no requirement for that with a Melchizedek. That's why it says it's just the power of indestructible life. It's referencing the concept of righteousness. So the Melchizedek, by this order of priests, you did not have to be of a specific tribal lineage or a specific family lineage. You just needed to qualify because you were a righteous ruler. You had to be righteous and you had to be a point of authority. You'd be a righteous ruler. So you'd be trained up in that ruling position and that righteous heart posture and lawful action. This is why there's a priesthood. The elder priests teach the younger men how to be good, righteous rulers. This is what a Melchizedek priesthood is. And this is why it's being compared. While Christ is saying he's from the tribe of Judah, of which it was not mentioned that he should minister at the altar of the Lord like the Levites, because it doesn't matter. In the Melchizedek order, you can be from any tribe of the earth. You can be Job. You know, Job was a priest. He was an Edomite, but he's a priest to God because he's a righteous ruler. So you could be of any clan, any sort. We don't even know who the Melchizedek was in Genesis 14 because it doesn't matter, because it's a session of men training other men to be priests. This is the way it's always been for priests. This is the instruction, the ordinance of the priesthood. You got to be in the right hood, yo. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about, Fitz. Yeah. You don't have to be a Levite. Job was not a Levite. He was an Edomite, fifth generation. He's called Jobab in Genesis 36. And he's the fifth generation down from Abraham as one of the Edomite chieftains. Right? If you want to see a greater explanation of this, you have to look in the Septuagint of Job 42, verse 17 in the Septuagint. It gives you like a whole breakdown of where he's from, who he was, what lineage he was, and you can and that his full name is Jobab, but he also goes by Job. Okay, so that's why you see him in Genesis 36. This is where, if you guys have ever wondered why Jethro, also called Ruel, in Exodus 18, is a high priest of Midian. That means he's got priests under him. And what did he do when he showed up to Moses and Aaron in Exodus 18? He made a burnt offering to Yahweh as their elder, and they worshiped with him with the burnt offering to Yahweh that he made to worship Yahweh, and nobody said a thing. Nobody said, ho, 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 you're not a Levite. What are you doing? Ho, ho, wait, you're not a priest. What are you talking about? No, he was a priest of Midian. He was a high priest, an elder to the father of Moses. They said elder to Moses, right? Who knows how old he was? Like Moses at that point, so 80 years old. Who knows how old Jethro was? The point is, they gave him that respect. Yahweh blessed that burnt offering that was done in Exodus 18, because this is how priesthoods work. If you guys want a greater in-depth breakdown on the priesthoods, we recover it in our basic Bible course. It's available on our Patron. Yeah, no problem. Sphinx Bear, no problem, brother. That's the goal, man, is we've got to understand these biblical concepts. And it'll bring this Old Testament to life. It really does. Yeah, I don't know. Job was not the person Abraham's tithing to. Job is fifth generation after Abraham. Job is an Edomite and a son of Esau. Yeah, yes, Rick Johnson. It's Noah all the way back to Adam. This is what the book of Jubilees talks about. Okay. This is why I'm trying to explain to you guys. The term Melchizedek is a title. It is not a person's name. It's a title for the order of Melchizedek, right? This is why the scriptures tell us this. The order of Melchizedek, that Christ is put in the order of Melchizedek. It's a priesthood. This is Hebrews 5:10. Christ is high priest forever in the order of Melchizedek, not in the order of Levi, in the order of Melchizedek. It's a separate order, a separate group of men with different qualifications for how you get into that group than the Levitical group. Okay. And that's why before Levite was given his priesthood, right? Levite being a son of Jacob, a great grandson of Abraham, before Levite was ever made made priest of his people, there was already priests around. There's a different order. There's already Yahweh training righteous men who then disciple other men into the priesthood and train other righteous men. Like this is why Abraham goes and gives tithes to a priest to the Most High God. It's very important concept. But this is the order that's talking about. And this blessing was passed on in the book of Jubilees with the blessings that are given to, let me go down here. I think it's in chapter 22. Yeah. All right, so I'll put this on the screen. This is chapter 22. And he called Jacob and said, "My son Jacob," all right, "may God bless all of you. May the God of all bless you and strengthen you strengthen thee to do righteousness and his will before him. And may he choose thee and your seed that ye may become a people for his inheritance according to his will always. And do, son, my Jacob, draw near and kiss me." And he drew near and kissed him and said, "Blessed be my son Jacob, and all the sons of God Most High unto the ages. May God give to you the seed of righteousness, and some of your sons he may sanctify in the midst of the whole earth." Priesthood. Many nations serve you. All the nations bow themselves before your seed. Be strong in the presence of men and exercise authority over the seed of Seth. This is the seed of righteousness versus the seed of rebellion. Then your ways and the ways of your sons will be justified, so they may become a holy nation. May the God Most High give you all the blessings wherewith he blessed me, and wherewith he also blessed Noah and Adam. May they rest on the sacred head of your seed forever from generation to generation. So this is talking about the priestly blessing. Okay, all the blessings. There's a difference between inheritance and blessing. The blessing is the priesthood. And may he cleanse you from the unrighteousness and impurity. May he forgive you for all the transgressions which you committed ignorantly. May he strengthen you and bless you. May you inherit the whole earth. And may he renew his covenant with you. May you be, that you may be to him a nation for an inheritance for all the ages, and that he may be to you and to your seed a God in truth and righteousness throughout all the days of the earth. So this is just one callback to the blessing that goes all the way back to Adam. And so if we go further on, I think it's in chapter 23. That was Abraham blessing Jacob. And then we go further down here. Maybe it's in chapter 25. I'm trying to remember, chapter 24. And Isaac blesses Levi. Okay. Nope. I'm trying to remember the exact passage here. Yeah, might be earlier on. Yeah, it's in 19. It's in 19. All right. Let your hands be strong. Let your heart rejoice in your son Jacob, for I've loved him far beyond all my sons. He shall be blessed forever. His whole seed shall fill the earth. If a man can number the sand of the sea, his seed shall be numbered. All the blessings wherewith the Lord has blessed me, and my seed shall belong to Jacob, and his seed always. And in his seed shall my name be blessed. That name is the word authority. The name that Abraham has and is passing to Jacob, he wants Jacob to get it, not Esau. This is the conversation he's having with Rebekah. And in his seed shall my name be blessed, and the name of my fathers, the authority of my fathers. That's a priesthood. Just like Christ has given the name, a priesthood, high priest forever, above all names, even above the angels. Hebrews 1:4, right? Just as much as he's given a better nature than them, he's also given a better name than them, a higher, more powerful name in his priesthood. It's the same name of his fathers. Shem had that same name: Noah, Enoch, Mahalalel, Enos, Seth, and Adam. And all these serve to lay the foundations of the heaven, to strengthen the earth and renew all the luminaries which are in the firmament. So, Jacob, my beloved son, whom my soul loves, may God bless you from above the firmament. May he give you all the blessings wherewith he blessed Adam, Enoch, Noah, Shem, and all the things which he told me. So this is just him expressing the concept of the authority. That's why it's so important to understand what this word name means by definition. It's authority. This is the same authority that Shem, Noah, Enoch, Mahalalel, Enos, Seth, and Adam had. They were all priests of Yahweh. It's very important. Very important. Jubilees is super important to our understanding. Looks like we've got a brother calling in tonight. Hawk, are you there?
Yeah. Hey, Sean, how you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for calling.
My computer just went out on me, so I don't know why my camera's not popping up, so I apologize.
It's okay.
I got no qualms at all with Jubilees, so is it okay if I pivot on something else, or do you want to just stick on that topic?
Yeah, man, you can ask your question. Yeah, you can ask a question. Go ahead.
Okay. I was calling in regards to idol worship, and do you think they worship any of the personifications of the dragon or the first beast or the second beast? Well, let me put it this way. How many idols, I guess is what I should be saying, do you think were worshiped that weren't related to the beast, the first beast, second beast, and also the dragon, but maybe Nephilim or unclean spirits? Do you think there was any of those personifications or avatars done with them?
In history, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, brother. Yeah. All kinds of demons have idols attributed after them. Yeah.
Okay. And was that something that was enacted? I'm trying to put an application to it. Do you think it was like, Satan saying, let's create these type of personifications, let's push this to, his little soldiers, or, his angels, if you want to call them that, the unclean spirits? I mean, do you think there was a campaign to push that, or do you think it was just mankind being pushed into creating these personifications through, dark magic or
Well, first Enoch tells us that idolatry was invented, like the idol worship in tribute to the Nephilim, the sons of the Watchers, was invented before the flood because of the rebellious Watchers teaching mankind to worship their Nephilim sons.
Okay, so antediluvian then. Okay, so then would you? Okay, so was that them pushing that campaign, do you think? I'm just trying to figure out who probably did most of the pushing on that side, or do you think mankind said, let's create this, imagery or personifications or avatars?
According to First Enoch, it was first invented by, this is why Exodus 20, I think it's verse 3, is a part of, that's why it's stated there that you shall not make a graven image. A graven image is something that you worship in accordance with anything in the heavens, on the earth, in the seas, or in the waters under the seas, because that was what was introduced to mankind before the flood with the rebellious angels teaching mankind idolatry. And so this is why I've suggested that there was a wide plethora of chimeras that were inhabited by that Nephilim spirits, right? To try to so what I mean by that is there's a process in First Enoch that's described as part of the judgment for the Watchers. They have to watch over the next 500 years leading up to the flood. They're going to watch their sons kill each other in warfare.
That's right.
Well, what happens when a Nephilim son of a Watcher loses his body? Now he's an unclean spirit who's without a body.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
This is where they come from. But you're a Watcher. You're an extremely powerful angel who's got 1,000 times more knowledge than mankind. You're already creating Nephilim giants who are unclean spiritual beings birthed from women, which is some higher technology than we understand.
Right.
So this is why we also have all the ancient depictions of the chimeras, whom supposedly were animal representations, but yet also were real. Like people, they talked about them as if they were real. Like, oh, there's a lion-headed man walking around speaking like a person.
Sure.
Right. So like we've talked about in other episodes, other streams, even modernity, science is trying to do this again in modernity. They're trying to figure out, as part of the transhumanism agenda, they're trying to figure out how can we breed animals and mankind together through genetic splicing so that it works, basically, right? So we have though it doesn't die immediately, right? But it works, right?
Right.
Well,
coming full circle years later, or decades, or millennia later. Yeah.
Okay. Nothing new under the sun. But the angels, the rebellious angels before the flood, already did this. That's, in my opinion, my understanding from everything I've researched, that's how they would get their disembodied sons back in the physical game, to give them a host body that could last for a little while, even if it is some amalgamation of a
hybrid,
some hybrid of man/horse or man/crocodile or whatever, so that they could give them a chance to physically get back in the game and be a point of worship from the people. But of course, distance requires duplication. I just made that up, so I didn't think about this at a time, but distance requires duplication. Okay. So if you have millions of people, you only have a centralized Nephilim, whether he's still a giant or whether he's now a chimera in the physical form that people can look at. Well, the distance requires you to replicate his image and spread it about the earth so that people worship that image, knowing that the image represents a real ruler that's somewhere up on the earth, somewhere at some specific location, city, or whatever. Does that make any sense? That's why in Revelation 13, the second beast makes an image of the first beast and then goes across the earth, forcing people to worship the image of the first beast.
Right.
Because the first beast can't be everywhere at once. So that's why you have to duplicate his presence and authority through these molten images, these graven images.
Right.
So that's the idea, is that it's a great question. There's a lot kind of wrapped into this question of like, it's introduced by the Watchers, promoted by the Watchers and their Nephilim sons as a part of the religious system of wickedness to get people to stop worshiping Yahweh and to focus on the false promises offered by the Celestials, which would have been the rebellious Watchers, and then their demigod sons, the offspring, the Nephilim. And those false promises were, oh, you don't have to go to Yahweh for life and prosperity and abundance and fertility. We'll give you all that stuff. Just worship us.
Now, do you also think that the worship of them, like, in years back, say 2,000 years, or, and even further, on every street corner like it used to be, now they go underground, create secret symbolism in societies and things of that nature, but that has to come full circle also, doesn't it? Especially during the 42 months where everything's propagated out into the open again, especially if you're trying to get the abode of Satan, or the eye of Ra, or what have you, as our progenitor, to come back and say, somehow get reintroduced back into us. That's ultimately, I guess, is what he's trying to do as well. Get everything back out on the street corner where everybody's working openly, as opposed to being, subdued underground with special symbolized, or secret societies or things of that nature. Everything has to come out front again.
I think so. I don't think it has to, but it will. It's their goal. Yeah. It's their goal. They want to, the occult talks about the golden age, which would be their historical reference to before the flood, when the rebellious angels ruled the world. that's the golden age they reference to. They want to come back, the age of Aquarius that they falsely prophesy they want to return, and will try to make happen. But I don't think they're going to have success, because clearly Christ is more powerful and he's going to thwart them. This is prophesied in various ways. You start studying, all the breakdowns and intricately. Right. This is why they have to force people with threat of death in Revelation 13 to worship the first beast. Right. Because they're not doing it willfully.
Right. And that hands back to the 42 months again now. That's a horrible time in which all of this is being implemented at a very large scale,
Right.
And I think some of the nations, if there was 10 nations, 3 of them don't agree, it seems like. And so not all the nations agree with this campaign of his. And maybe they war with each other before Yeshua just shortly comes back.
Yeah, that's what various passages talk about, that they are going to be at odds with each other, warm with each other. But then in the moment that the first beast rallies them, if I could put it like that, like basically says, hey, there's a greater threat, like rally together, they'll come to Israel to try to fight Christ that is coming. But there's not going to be peace on the earth. There's not going to be any kind of unanimous adherence to a one world governmental system, because that's just never going to happen again. It's the fantasy of the occult is to get back to the days of Babylon, where they were building the tower for 40 plus years, when all the world was in one accord trying to build this tower. And they'll never have that again. They'll never have that one accord that they want. Only on the day of judgment, in that one little moment where they all come together in a type of accord, but it's still just 10 kings and the armies that are within his control. It's still not going to be all people, because there's survivors of those people that attacked Zion and attacked the dissension of Zion, that we see in Isaiah 60:61. The survivors of the nations that attacked God at Christ's second coming, they're judged.
Right.
So that means, and some of them are judged favorably, right? That's sheep. So that means that not all of them wanted to be a part of this. And some people even believe that there's prophecies in Psalms that talk about Ethiopia, different places like Ethiopia will just completely be out of it altogether, and will be, given favoritism, if you will, as a righteous nation. But that's kind of that's a bigger conversation. The point is,
right.
There's like, the enemy wants you to think that Revelation is doom for the whole world and doom for you as a believer, but it's not. It's doom for the enemy.
It is.
They're grasping at authority. They're grasping at control because they're losing it. They're grasping at total control because they want to have what they had before, and they're never going to have that again. And it's just their last gasping breath at a type of reality that they'll never experience again, because Christ came to destroy the works of the devil.
And I think if you actually, when you're sitting there watching the firmament open up and you're watching Yeshua come down, I think there's a lot of people at that moment that will see truth. No longer the heliocentric, every eye will see him. So that model of the heliocentric model would, obviously fall flat. But at the same time, I think people would probably instantly repent at that moment. A lot of people, I'm sure, when they see that happen, if it's not too late.
I hope it's not too late.
Yeah.
I hope that Christ views whomever tries to repent, that we'll see. He's the ultimate judge. Obviously, he's given the authority to judge from his Father, and that's righteous judgment. And as he says in John 5, as he hears, he judges. As he's, so he's actually the point of interface for the judgment, but the ultimate authority of the judgment and wisdom from the judgment flowing through him is from the Father. So we have a merciful, loving Father, and his goal is not that any should perish, but that all should repent. And we, even if it comes down to the last few moments, we'll see who he lets repent and who he doesn't believe.
Immense patience.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean.
It's quite a thing, man, to think about, like, when it finally wraps up, to think about how the world will be set right. No more war, famine, disease. no more theft, no more mass theft of the nations. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing to think about. Like, you can actually just breathe deep and not think, oh, I'm being poisoned by glyphosate in the field next by, or, oh, I'm, being poisoned by chemtrails, or, oh, I'm being poisoned by something in my water. Or, like, you can literally just live as you were intended and created to be. This is the beautiful promise of Christ coming back to rule the nations, bring peace upon the earth, destroy the unclean spirits in the lake of fire, first and second beast, put Satan away for 1,000 years, and it's gonna be a beautiful time.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Sorry to pivot like that on you, but I appreciate it.
It's okay. I was gonna end the show anyway, so it's a great way to go out.
All right.
Bless you, bro. Thank you. Okay, guys. Thank you for being here. Yeah, Jubilees wasn't written by the Essenes. Thank you guys for being here. Jesus didn't turn water into wine, and there's no stories of Jesus in Jubilees. It's a different book. It's a parallel to Genesis into the first 4 chapters of Exodus. So different time period. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for being here. Hopefully this is a blessing to you. And like, share, and subscribe. Go check us out on Kick. You can you can. There's people already talking live chat. I can see them blended together in my studio. There's just as much interaction over there as well. Help us grow over there. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers over there as well, because it's no censorship, no commercials, and it's just another place to support us if you want. And in case we lose our opportunity on YouTube, we don't know what YouTube's going to do. YouTube is constantly changing. They're constantly changing their algorithm. They're constantly censoring us with different ways, not just the commercials, but with no notifications, with demonetizing us, with limiting our visibility for which videos go where. Like, it's a constant dice game with YouTube. Go check us out on Rumble and Kick. Build us up over there. They're just as good interfaces to listen to and watch. You can turn off your phone and just listen if you want to. So be blessed, guys. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Slow down and return to what truly restores. Our Sabbath Rest blend was created for all to enjoy, a comforting blend of organic herbs traditionally used to calm restlessness and invite deep, peaceful rest, perfect before bed or while observing the day of rest with the Most High. The Tree of Life blend draws from organic natural herbs, thoughtfully crafted to support balance and renewal. Best enjoyed a few times each week with a touch of organic raw honey. 2 blends that are crafted with care for a moment of peace in every cup.